This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Friday, July 2nd, 2021. I'm Ephraim Graham. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin this half hour with this. Conservatives are praising a Supreme Court ruling affirming Arizona voting laws designed to stamp out fraud. In a 6-3 opinion, the High Court upheld the laws, which critics say unfairly target minority voters. Jennifer Wishon explains.
In an opinion written by Justice Alito, the court ruled 2 Arizona voting laws constitutional. The laws require votes cast in the wrong precinct to be thrown out and ban so-called ballot harvesting, where voters give their ballots to someone else to turn in.
These measures are designed to provide order and secure the elections and provide confidence in the results.
Opponents argue the laws violate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which prohibits voting practices that discriminate on the basis of race or color. In this case, Native Americans who have difficulty accessing mail routes.
For somebody who lives in a rural community where you may live 50 or 75 miles from a post office box that you share with a bunch of other families because they're hard to come by, then that's a whole different story.
But the court argued that the law generally makes it quite easy to vote, and conservatives say the measures offer protections against possible voter fraud. The ruling is encouraging to other states considering similar laws.
Justice Alito made clear in his opinion today, the state has a legitimate interest in preventing and detecting election fraud. And that's exactly what Arizona and these other states are trying to do with these new election-related measures.
Lawmakers in at least 48 states are considering some 380 bills designed to strengthen voting laws. Writing in dissent, Justice Elena Kagan said, referring to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, "What is tragic is that the court has damaged a statute designed to bring about the end of discrimination in voting." The ruling again led to Democratic calls to pass their massive election overhaul bill called the For the People Act. This is exactly why we need federal protections to ensure every American has equal access to the ballot box, tweeted Democrat Senator Jeff Merkley. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand adding, "We can't let the filibuster stand in our way. Our democracy depends on it." But the Democrats' bill may also face legal scrutiny. Republicans argue it's unconstitutional because it takes the power over elections away from the states and gives it to the federal government. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
More than 170 House members have told President Joe Biden his budget proposal is, quote, affront to the majority of Americans who do not want their tax dollars being used to kill unborn children by abortion. The letter was released Thursday. 172 members of Congress state, quote, recent polling found nearly 60% of Americans oppose using tax dollars to pay for a woman's abortion. We are deeply disappointed that in your budget request, you call for the removal of the Hyde Amendment. The letter comes in response to Biden's break with historic bipartisanship of the Hyde Amendment, which has been included in appropriations legislation on a bipartisan basis every year since 1976. The Hyde Amendment has been credited with saving more than 2 million lives. Meanwhile, President Biden met with family members and first responders of the deadly condominium collapse in Surfside, Florida. This as 2 more bodies were pulled from the rubble, both children. Our CBN News White House correspondent Eric Phillips gives us a look at the president's trip.
The president pledged that families, first responders, and the community there in Surfside, Florida, would have the full support of the federal government for as long as it's needed, beginning with financial help. Biden saying Washington will pick up 100% of the bill for this operation for at least the first 30 days.
We're not going anywhere.
Thank you, Mr.
No,
President.
for real.
The president and first lady traveling to Surfside, Florida, exactly 1 week after the condo collapse that's left dozens missing and at least 18 confirmed dead.
It is also with great sorrow, real pain, that I have to share with you that 2 of these were children, aged 4 and 10.
They were identified as 10-year-old Lucia and 4-year-old Emma. Their parents also killed in the collapse.
There's going to be a lot of pain and anxiety and suffering and even need for psychological help in the days and months that follow.
Biden says he can help there too. He met with first responders to personally thank them for their work over this tough week.
What you're doing here is incredible. Having to deal with the uncertainty and worrying about, the families. And, anyway, thank you.
Search operations were halted overnight Thursday because of fear the remaining structure could crumble.
Concern assessors included 6 to 12 inches of movement in a large column hanging from the structure that could fall and cause damage to the support columns in the subterranean garage area.
This as disturbing new video surfaces, taken just 7 minutes before the collapse. It shows water gushing into the garage below the building, as well as debris on the ground. All this as officials are keeping an eye on the forecast as severe weather threatens to move in. Officials say that would hamper but not completely stop work at the site. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
And speaking of severe weather, this week's historic heat wave has proven deadly. Record-shattering temperatures have happened in the Pacific Northwest. At least 76 people have died of heat-related issues in the past week in Oregon and Washington state. Nearly 100 more deaths were reported in British Columbia, Canada. The scorching temperatures have left bone-dry conditions that in part are responsible for fueling more than 40 wildfires in the West. Experts say this kind of historic heat wave that hit the Pacific Northwest would normally only happen once every 1,000 years. But they say with global warming, these extreme weather events are likely to happen even more. As we approach the long holiday weekend, the Centers for Disease Control is warning the highly contagious Delta variant now accounts for more than a quarter of the country's new COVID cases. And their special concern, under-vaccinated areas are especially vulnerable. Senior National Affairs correspondent Heather Sells is on this story.
1 month ago, the Delta variant accounted for just 3% of all U.S. cases. Now it's exploded to more than a quarter. And that's bad news for under-vaccinated areas.
What you are going to see among under-vaccinated regions, be they states, cities, or counties, you're going to see these individual types of blips. It's almost like it's going to be two Americas.
Dr. Anthony Fauci is warning of high risk in these communities. Right now, Delta's epicenter is in Missouri, where just 38% of those eligible are fully vaccinated. In the last month, COVID cases have shot up by 75%. And a new analysis by Bloomberg shows in close to 500 counties, many in the south and central regions of the U.S., less than 25% are vaccinated. Fauci and other public health officials say vaccination is the best way to stop Delta in its tracks.
This is entirely avoidable, entirely preventable. If you are vaccinated, you diminish dramatically your risk of getting infected, and even more dramatically, your risk of getting seriously ill.
The White House is also pushing the message.
Getting vaccinated is safe, it's effective, and it's free.
New polling from Axios shows that while a majority of Americans are now concerned about the Delta variant, they have not changed their behavior. Last week, the World Health Organization re-upped its recommendation that everyone wear masks, and this week, Los Angeles followed suit, recommending masks in public indoor spaces. But the CDC is taking a different tack, letting those who are vaccinated know they don't need one.
Those masking policies are really intended to protect the unvaccinated. The vaccinated, we believe, still are safe.
For now, Los Angeles stands alone. Public health officials in other big cities like Chicago and New York say they do not plan to return to mask requirements. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thousands of Palestinians are continuing to protest in Ramallah and Bethlehem to protest the death of Nazir Banat. Banat was a prominent critic of the Palestinian Authority. And joining us now to talk more about this situation is CBN's Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell. So, Chris, you and your team have been reporting about the volatile situation all week. How serious of a threat are these protests to PA President Mahmoud Abbas?
Well, Ephraim, probably the most serious threat to Abbas in a long time. It's gotten the attention of Western donor nations, and that's very important to the Palestinian Authority and the Western media. More protests are scheduled today, and Banat actually may be more of a threat to Abbas as a martyr, and that's what some people are calling him, than actually when he was alive. Abbas faces a threat not only from critics like Banat, but also Hamas. They're more popular in the West Bank than Abbas. And right now, he's in the 16th year of a 4-year term. That's part of what the critics are really targeting him about. And recently, they had scheduled elections, but he called them off. Really, he's afraid that those elections would end his 16-year rule.
Chris, why was Banat the apparent target of Palestinian security officers?
Well, he really took on Facebook. He was criticizing them over and over for months. So he accused the PA of corruption, their financial corruption. That's actually well known. He actually, and suppressing free speech as well. He wasn't the only critic. Many more have been criticizing the Palestinian Authority and Mahmoud Abbas, and that's a sign of his weakness right now. And that's maybe why security forces actually went and arrested, and then he died in their custody. And actually, some of these critics right now, we've talked to one of them earlier this week, they're fearing for their own lives after the death of Banat.
Chris, the European Union is the main donor to the Palestinian Authority. How are they responding?
Well, they're responding by they're saying they're going to have an investigation. They want an international investigation. But actually, they've actually given at least $200 million to the PA institutions, $425 million in all. And some are blaming the EU and also the U.S. for enabling the Palestinian Authority by giving all this money, millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to the PA without accountability. In fact, Banat, he had wrote a letter to the EU before he died asking them to stop their aid to the Palestinian Authority. That might have been the last straw that the PA and why they went ahead, apparently killed Banat.
Real quickly, before we let you go, what can we look forward to this evening on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we'll have a story on these ongoing protests about Nazat Banar's death. We'll have a story about Israeli teams that are helping out in Miami. And also the Israeli embassy was opened in the United Arab Emirates, one of the latest news about the Abraham Accords. And also we'll have a feature on To Life, Israeli volunteers changing the world. That's what they're doing in Miami. They've been doing that around the world for a long time.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. I want to let you know at home that you can catch Chris Mitchell and the entire Middle East Bureau team on the CBN News Channel. The show begins at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. As the U.S. prepares to pull out of Afghanistan, the military situation is deteriorating rapidly. 20 years after American forces drove the Taliban from power, there are fears the terrorist group is poised to retake the country. Dale Hurd is on this story.
This is Taliban video of victory celebrations after more districts in Afghanistan were taken over by the group in just the past few days. Here are elite U.S.-trained Afghan government forces surrendering and shaking hands with Taliban commanders. And here are U.S. Humvees now at the service of rebel forces. The U.S. military's top commander in Afghanistan, General Austin Miller, says he's worried about the rapid loss of districts to the Taliban.
The loss of terrain and the rapidity of that loss of terrain has to be concerning. We're starting to create conditions here that won't look good for Afghanistan in the future if there's a push for a military takeover.
This map shows that most of Afghanistan, the areas shaded red and black, are already under Taliban control or are being contested. As the Taliban advance across Afghanistan, the announced withdrawal of U.S. forces has only emboldened them. The White House has set September 11th as the deadline for a full troop withdrawal, which began under Donald Trump. But retired four-star General Jack Keane says the Biden administration's assurances of support to the Afghan government remind him of similar assurances given by President Obama when the U.S. withdrew from Iraq. And what followed was a nightmare for the region.
These are the similar statements that were made by the Obama administration in 2011 as our troops were withdrawing, and we know what happened as a result of that. We got ISIS.
The war in Afghanistan began 20 years ago. After 9/11, the cost of the war is a staggering $2.25 trillion. One expert called it the largest failed global redistribution project in history. Almost 2,500 American military servicemen and women have died. But you'll hear no gratitude from former Afghan President Hamid Karzai, who says the U.S. has failed and should just go.
They're leaving behind a country in conflict with so much loss of life, with so much suffering.
Panic in Kabul is building as the Taliban march toward the capital. Those who can choose to go abroad have left. It will long be debated whether America should have ever gotten itself involved on the ground in Afghanistan. But America's departure is certain to bring more suffering and death to this troubled nation. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Coming up, a look at life before the pandemic. Just ahead, why experts believe summer travel is back, starting with this holiday weekend. We'll be right back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
A return to pre-pandemic life is emerging. Travel experts believe Independence Day will see a return to pre-COVID levels. CBN anchor George Thomas explains.
14 months after a global virus brought travel to a screeching halt, the industry is about to hit a frenzied pace. With 46% of Americans fully vaccinated and mask mandates lifted in most places, this holiday weekend is expected to be the busiest since the beginning of the pandemic.
There's an amazing amount of pent-up demand for people to connect with each other and reunite.
Leisure demand is up more than 100% of what it was in 2019. And that has airlines, for example, struggling to keep up, forced to cancel scores of flights due to staffing shortages.
The recovery of air travel has happened so fast. The airlines are scrambling to get as many flights in the air without the labor force often to back that up.
The massive travel surge also affecting fuel supply, as some 3.5 million are expected to take to the skies in coming days.
The pilot comes on the line and says, this is the first time in 30 years I've been told there's no fuel.
Meanwhile, back on the ground, folks can expect to pay more to fill up at the pump for the foreseeable future. Gas prices right now at the highest they've been since the 4th of July in 2014.
It just proves that the road trip is back, stronger than ever, and we expect that trend to continue through the end of the summer.
Though in some places, stations are reportedly running out of gas due to a shortage of truck drivers needed to deliver that fuel.
The good news is there's plenty of fuel flowing
It's just a matter of time before stations that have lost supply of gasoline have another delivery made.
Here at the ocean front in Virginia Beach, Virginia, city officials are telling locals and tourists alike to prepare for traffic congestion as they're expecting larger than normal crowds. Tourists like Chris Smith, visiting all the way from Seattle, simply thrilled to be out enjoying the water.
Well, I think people are excited to get out and about, and hopefully they'll make wise decisions on still keeping safe.
I thought that I was going to be stuck in the house for a few more years, and in my neighborhood, I didn't think that in only a year and a half we were going to be all the way here at Virginia Beach for the second time.
According to AAA, from today through Monday, some 50 million people are expected to take a trip of 50 miles or more away from home. George Thomas, CBN News.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire. Monday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Thursday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
College athletes have a new opportunity to make some extra cash this week. The NCAA Division I board adopted a policy that suspends some amateur rules. CBN Sports Director Sean Brown joins us now to talk about this major change. So, Sean, how exactly can these athletes make extra money now? Sean, can you hear me? It appears we're having some trouble with Sean's audio. We'll try to get that corrected. Want to remind you that you can catch Sean's Going the Distance this weekend. We'll be right back with more CBN NewsWatch coming up right after this.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
All right, we fixed Sean's audio and he's back now with more on this story about college athletes. So, Sean, exactly how can these athletes make extra money?
Hi, Ephraim. Yes, name, image, likeness, nil. This has been going on. It's a long time coming. Right now, athletes can make money via social media, autographs, advertisement campaigns. They can get agents to help them get those deals. And so this is a long time coming. So it's a big step in the right direction.
Now, we know athletes have been pushing for this for a while. Why do you think it is finally coming to fruition right now?
Well, in a way, the NCAA's hand was forced. I mean, this ruling comes just the day before many states were getting ready to pass a law that prohibited schools from enforcing laws that goes against the NCAA in terms of schools preventing athletes from making money. And so several states were getting ready to pass a law that would rule against schools preventing that.
Now, this isn't a permanent solution, so what do you think, what else has to happen to keep this rule around long term?
Well, the big elephant in the room is that schools aren't paying athletes directly. All of the money that can be made is coming from outside sources. And so they're making money off their name, likeness, and image, or name, image, and likeness. But, you know, Congress has been going back and forth about trying to reform college sports. And part of that is, should the schools pay the athletes? And so that's a big hurdle that they're still trying to work through. And so there's a lot of work to be done. This is a step in the right direction. But again, there's a huge gap between what athletes are going to be able to get versus what schools are making from these athletes. And so Congress is still, you know, going back and forth about how to make that a national thing in terms of nil first, and then should schools pay athletes.
All right, Sean Brown, CBN Sports, thank you so much. Good to have you.
Thank you.
The Statue of Liberty's little sister has arrived now in New York City. The replica statue from France weighs about 1,000 pounds and stands 9 feet tall. It's made from the same plaster mold as the 1878 original. It will be on display at Ellis Island over the Independence holiday weekend before heading to Washington, D.C. for France's Bastille Day. That is on July 14th. Time now for your Friday Faithful. I want to leave you with this thought. When circumstances don't look like God's promises, He still remains faithful. Reality will reflect His word. Remain faithful because God is always faithful. With that word, be sure to have a fantastic Friday and a fabulous 4th of July weekend. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We'd like to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And, of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope to see you right back here, same time Monday. Goodbye, everybody.